at that, we've got new titles. It's a new season. Welcome, folks, to the Paddock here in Bahrain. Welcome to F1 Live, your post-race show with me, Will Buxton, and him, Pietro Fittipaldi. And Pietro, what a race we have seen today here in Bahrain to start off the 2021 season. It went right down to the wire. Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen, and it went to the 7-time world champion.
Crazy race, awesome finish. It was competitive all the way to the end. I was thinking it was going to be Max's race, without a doubt. And then, he had to give the position back and couldn't get past Hamilton again.
So we will discuss that and the controversies around both the move for the lead and the incredible gifting of the win back to Lewis Hamilton. Was it necessary? Was it unnecessary? All this to come up in the show. We'll be hearing from the drivers who've just completed today's Grand Prix. It was an absolutely fascinating race, a brilliant battle, and Mercedes really had to work for it. But at the end of the Bahrain Grand Prix, folks, here are your results. It is Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, your race winner, but he had to fight for it, and the story wasn't as simple as just winning that race. Max Verstappen came home second, Valtteri Bottas in third, then a brilliant race from Lando Norris to fourth, Sergio Perez. Difficulties for him at the start, but a battling drive to fifth. Leclerc in sixth, Ricciardo seventh, Sainz eighth, Yuki Tsunoda on debut, a brilliant ninth, and Lance Stroll in P10 for the final point of the day in the Aston Martin. Behind them, it's Raikkonen and Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo. Ocon, who had an eventful day. Russell in 14th. Vettel, shocker, in 15th. Schumacher in 16th. Gasly, really disappointing day for him in 17th. Latifi 18th, and your two non-finishers, Alonso with brake problems, and Nikita Mazepin spinning out under his own steam before the race was 4 corners old. Where do we start with this, Pietro? Let's start with the fact that we have got a battle this year in Formula One. Red Bull, we knew had the pace ever since testing. They took the pole position. They were fighting for the win today, and Mercedes had to use some clever strategy to use the undercut to get ahead.
Yeah, they had to use a clever strategy, but I'm very happy, not only as a driver, but as a fan watching, that now we have two teams fighting for the win. It was difficult last year to have that. This year we're having it already from the first race. I hope it goes this way, for the whole season. That's going to be exciting, as, a lot of teams are saying, the high-rate cars have a bit of an advantage this year. So it's interesting to see, and man, I really thought it was Verstappen's race, and Hamilton was able to hold off there to the end.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton isn't a 7-time world champion for nothing. But I tell you what, the battle at the front was incredible. The battle throughout the field was incredible today. Charles Leclerc came home a brilliant P6. You had some wonderful battles, a great race today. What does this mean for you, for Ferrari, in terms of the realization of the race pace on top of that brilliant qualifying performance?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a positive race. Then it's only a 6th place, but I think considering where we were fighting at last year, I think it's been a very good progress. So yeah, 6th place, I'm quite happy with it. We tried to be a bit aggressive on the first stop to try and push the others in different strategies, which worked. But then towards the end of the race, we struggled a little bit because of this. But yeah, overall, it's been a good weekend, a good progress, as I've said, and now I'm really looking forward to Italy.
Does the race today confirm what you thought you'd learnt in pre-season testing, both in terms of your own pace and where you sit in relation to your rivals?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously after testing we weren't really sure where we were compared to the others, but there were some positive signs, and today I think we've shown that there are some positive signs really. So this is the most important. Now we still have a lot of things to analyze, why the third stint was a bit worse compared to the others on my side, but yeah, I'll work on that and hopefully come back stronger in Imola.
We won't keep you long. One final question I've got to ask you. It has nothing to do with your race at all. Turn 4. Driver's briefing. Were you told in the Grand Prix that you could cross with all 4 at turn 4, or did you have to stick within limits at turn 4?
I think during driver's briefing it wasn't mentioned for the race especially, but yeah, after this morning we were aware about this rule, yes.
So you could cross,
yes,
without penalty?
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Charles. Great race. Well done. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sylvia. So, confirmation there. Now that is important, really, really important, because the controversy around turn 4 was whether you could or couldn't cross that. We'll come back to that in a minute though, because the man of the moment, Yuki Tsunoda, what a debut, young man. Phenomenal job. Incredible. I believe you're the youngest Japanese driver to score points, youngest rookie Japanese driver to score points, and you said yesterday the result you wanted today was to come home in the points. You've done it. What a great Grand Prix. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, definitely I enjoyed it. My first target was to get a point, so was clear. But the other side, I did have a little bit disappointing thing, especially in the first lap. I lost a lot of position. I was too cautious to not having a damage. Yeah, and I have to recover a lot after that. So today, big mistakes for first lap. But others was the pace was there and the car was really good. And also, I think, yeah, at the end, he was really close with Stroll. Yeah, but I think overall, there was a lot of positive things to learn, and also there's a lot still space to learn. So really looking forward for the next Imola. Yeah.
And some of your overtaking moves today were incredible. The moves up at turn 1, how late you were on the brakes. What does that show about the confidence you already have in your car in just your first Grand Prix?
Yeah, I have a pretty good confidence for especially braking. For the braking, I have confidence in not losing to the other guy. And always from Formula 2, I always have a pretty good overtaking, especially like a late launch. So I just did same as Formula 1, and also Formula 1 there's a lot of small brake performance and a lot of stopping power. So for me, biggest flashback was a late launch to the Fernando. It was a little bit emotional thing for me because last time I saw was 12 years ago. I saw in Fuji Speedway when I was 7 or 8 years old. So I'm really happy, a little bit emotional things that I passed him, but of course it's not same car. But yeah, I was happy.
Well, look, it was an amazing debut. I'm sure that move must have meant a lot to you. I'm sure we're going to see many more from you. You're the man everyone's talking about after this weekend.
Thank you.
Brilliant debut. Many congratulations. Can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you.
Ah, what a guy. I mean, he has just turned up in this sport and set the place alight. What an exhilarating, thrilling guy to watch race.
No, he's a great guy. First time I met him, actually. Look, Esteban's over here, ready to go.
We're on the conveyor belt today. Esteban, not the race that you would have wanted. I know today was a difficult one for you, but what did you manage to learn in today's race about the competitiveness of the car you've got in race conditions that you can carry forward?
I mean, it's a shame. I even asked my James, who's in the team with us, the first person I have in contact with the team, and they didn't show any of the fights we were having in this race, which is a shame. But I think we've really shown a fighting spirit this race. I mean, we had great battles with Yuki Tsunoda, even if he was a little bit faster than us. We kept him behind for a long, long time. We had fights with Antonio Giovinazzi as well out of the pits, which was great. Obviously, a fight with Seb in the end, which didn't go so great.
Yes.
But, you know, he came, apologized, and he got a penalty for it, so it's all fine. I would have been a bit more upset if we were fighting for 5th, but we were not.
We did see some great races, some great fights that involved you. We're going to have a look at them a little bit later in the show. But I think maybe not all of your fights made it on because field itself, there were fights top to bottom, all the way through for every position between every team. How close is this field right now?
It's unbelievably close, and as you said, Will, I think you know, starting in the back, you know, not being where you are supposed to be in qualifying like we were, this is what makes it tricky because the cars are all very close in that midfield battle, and we were 11 and 12, but you know, very close to the points. But you can't be starting that far, so. We need to, you know, have a bit more luck in quali, and I think we will have, you know, the chance to get in the points. Today it's unfortunate that Fernando retired as well, so it's not a great day for the team. But you know, there's a lot of positives to take on board, and I'm sure, you know, we'll forget that one in a short future.
Excellent stuff. Great drive today.
Thank you, Will.
Well done. À la prochaine.
À la prochaine. Thank you.
Tough times for Alpine. Fernando Alonso retiring from the race with brake issues. And a tricky one for Esteban as well. But as he was saying, the field, we can't really call it a midfield now, is so stacked, is so close. The racing today was phenomenal.
Yeah, the racing was really good, all the way from, you know, the leaders fighting all the way to mid-pack. And, I was expecting, it's strange that Alpine, struggled this week, and I hope they can bounce back because they had good form last year, Finished on the podium, Renault did, and I was expecting a little bit more. It's a shame that they're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, they really are. Obviously, the majority of other teams have made big steps with their power units, the likes of Ferrari, especially Mercedes, Honda, everybody's made those steps forward. Perhaps, potentially, not quite so much for that Renault engine in the back of the Alpine. Lando Norris.
Hi.
What a race,
Thank
man.
you.
What a race. Are you happy with this result today? Does it confirm what you guys had hoped to be bringing to the party after testing?
In a way, I think the winner today was just the starts and the restarts, getting ahead of Daniel and Pierre, and then having just better pace than the Ferrari of Charles throughout the race. So I think a little bit of what we were expecting. Obviously, the start is always unknown and you can't expect things. But I did a good job in getting past them and giving myself good track position to look after the tyres, look after the pace. So yeah, from my side, I'm happy.
And we've got to say, for us, watching the race, it was thrilling. You had some great battles. Your battle with Charles was an absolute thrill ride. We loved watching it. How great is it to get out there and know that this midfield fight is properly on?
I've missed it a lot. I just feel like it's been a very long time since Abu Dhabi. But it's good, it's good to see the progress we've made. Maybe not so much in qualifying. I think yesterday we were a little bit off and we have work to do, but today we brought it back and we gained some valuable points for the rest of the season. So it's good, and it's looking like it's going to be a good battle throughout the rest of the year, with Ferrari, with the AlphaTauris, probably with Renault in more races, or Alpine, whatever it is, Renault. Yeah, I look forward to that because it's what makes racing so fun. It's what I enjoyed about today was that racing and the battling, and it also makes it much tougher for the engineers and the strategy guys because the whole pack, from fourth or whatever all the way to 15th is very close, and makes our lives very difficult, but it's part of it and it makes it very enjoyable.
And obviously in that move with Charles, you had to go a little bit wide at turn 4. It's a question we're asking all of the drivers. What do you understand the rules to be on turn 4 in terms of going wide? We know you couldn't do it in qualifying.
Yep.
Were you told you could in the race?
So you could do it, but just not without gaining an advantage. So I went to the outside of Charles and it was just a fair fight. He squeezed me and that's racing. And I was off the track and I could have kept it flat out after and probably gone side by side through 6 and 7. But you're not allowed to go off and gain an advantage. And by doing that, I would have been gaining an advantage. So I had to lift off and give him the position and have a crack again the next lap, which I did and got past. So I think it's quite clear, quite straightforward. Obviously, it's always a bit iffy and you want to race and just have proper side-by-side battles, and we did. But you just can't do it unfairly like I almost did. So yeah, I'm just happy with what I did. And I think it was all fair, so good race.
It was a joy watching you race today, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great stuff from him. Now we talk about this midfield fight and the teams involved with that. McLaren, we've just heard from Charles Leclerc as well. At Ferrari, Alpine are in the mix. Red Bull are there, Mercedes up at the front. It is so tight. It is so difficult to know where the overall order is right now, but McLaren have got to leave today being happy.
Yeah, for sure, because even in testing, they were really strong. So they showed consistency. It wasn't really a, maybe they had a good strategy, but the pace was there. From testing, from free practices, they've been there. But, every track suits different cars. So let's see the next track, which is Imola. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very high downforce track, so a lot of corners, different than here. Here is... it is high downforce. There is a, midfield that, there's a lot of mid-sector where there's a lot of medium to high-speed corners, but there's long straights too. So you need to get a bit lower downforce to have top speed. Imola is a little bit different. It's a lot more corners, a lot higher downforce in my opinion. So maybe that will shake up things again, and we'll see who has a better car for those types of tracks.
And of course, we've heard from Yuki Tsunoda already. Pierre Gasly, we were expecting him to fight today. He ultimately undid his own race. He drove into the back of Daniel Ricciardo early on, took off his front wing. Without that, we think AlphaTauri could have played as well.
He would have been. They would have been strong. He was somewhere in the top 6, I believe. He was up there, and he was up there in practice, up there in qualifying. So they're another team that showed a lot of pace, not only in this race weekend, but throughout testing as well. So that's going to be good to see.
Well, we talked about Yuki Tsunoda fighting his way through the field today, but another driver who had to fight his way through the field. He'd already had a disappointing qualifying, but when his car ground to a halt on the formation lap, it looked like he was out of the race before it began. He did start the race. He fought like hell. Sergio Perez did everything he could on his Red Bull debut and possibly leaves the day as one of the drivers of the day.
Hey Checo, what is it about Bahrain and you having to fight through the field, eh?
I don't know, but considering how my race started, I think we can be pleased. The most important of today was that I was able to do the race, you know, and yesterday I missed out in Q3. I missed a lot of mileage, so that wasn't ideal, but today I did the race and I think I got a lot of understanding and a lot of data to go through with the engineers. A lot of work ahead of us, but we can see that things are coming, are clicking, everything is clicking better. Everything was feeling better out there in the race, so I'm pleased with that.
What went through your mind when everything just switched off?
Well, I don't know what happened really. I was in the middle of the corner and everything went off. I lost engine, I lost ignition. I thought that was it, and all of a sudden I started to hear Jonathan on the radio. I was like, well, this thing woke up, and I turned on the engine and I had to start from the pit lane. Yeah, but a lot of work ahead of us to be back in the contention, in the place where we want to be. The positive is that I think the pace was good today, so we're getting there.
Great to hear from Checo without that problem at the start. What do we reckon? Podium?
It could have been, I believe so. It would have been a fight with Bottas, without a doubt.
Yeah, really would. From one driver who's moved teams to another driver who's moved teams, gracing us with his presence again, Daniel Ricciardo. How was your first race for McLaren?
It was okay. I mean, I would say, look, the weekend as a whole was pretty good. You know, I think we certainly started off on the right note. But if I speak specifically about the race, yeah, I didn't really have much pace. I struggled, and yeah, I didn't really have that much to give back as well. You know, in terms of every time I pushed, you know, all I could tell the team was, yeah, I'm trying, but I just kind of kill the tire every time I try and lift my level. So, yeah, we were a little bit, I would say, a little bit in no man's land for the majority of the race, just losing ground to the guys in front. But still, I think 7th is a good start. And I got plenty of stuff to feed back to the team, and I'm sure I'll learn as well what I can improve for next time.
How much are these early races then for you guys about learning? And is the learning purely, I mean, obviously you have your practice sessions, but is it really in the races where you learn the most about how your cars work and how your teams work and how you have to adapt the way that you work to get the most out of it?
I mean, yeah, like I'm certainly, I would say, very happy that I got the race under my belt today and did all the laps. I made, let's say, countless notes throughout the race, you know, to feed back to the team. So it's important, you know, in racing conditions as well. And, you know, I think just even, you know, Fridays are great though for me to experiment with the setup and still know what I'm after with this car, which, yeah, I still don't really know what's going to work for me. But I think we're not far off. I certainly feel, yeah, more comfortable after race 1, you know, than I did a couple of years ago after the switch I made from Red Bull to Renault.
Great stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Daniel. Great stuff. Great. Again, we heard from Lando. We've heard from Daniel. McLaren having a really good opening weekend.
Yeah, good, strong weekend for them. And it's interesting to hear him say, you know, every driver that goes to a new team, a new car, they all handle differently. So even him saying, you know, we're still not 100% with the setup for my style of driving. They're still experimenting on Fridays. I'm sure with Checo, it's the same way. With Carlos and Ferrari now, it's the same way. It's crazy to me as a driver to see like the differences. You know, they're all Formula 1 cars. They obviously have a lot of differences, but when you drive a car, they have completely different driving styles and, you know, ways to go quick. So it's interesting again to see, you know, him saying, you know, it's the car's different. I have to adapt to it. We're adapting the setup, so it's cool. The more races they'll have, the more experience with the car, the faster he's going to go, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Now, of course, this weekend has been very much about new drivers in new places, how they're settling into their new teams. And it's not just the F1 teams, it's us as well. We've got a new member on our team. David Alorca has been bringing the fever all the way through the weekend. Almost fell off his chair in the last 5 laps of the race, was getting so excited about everything. I know he is somewhere in the paddock right now. David, where are you? What's going on?
I'm out here posted just underneath the full moon here at the paddock. We have got Red Bull Racing just behind us. The mechanics are now packing up. We just see Perez go in, spudding all of his fellow mechanics over here. He's had a fantastic race over here. And, you know, the mood is a little bit down, you know what I mean? But I think there's a little bit of excitement as well because they've seen in race pace, they have what it takes to beat the Mercedes. They're a little bit disappointed because they weren't able to do it today. Right next door is the Mercedes. And I literally just saw Toto Wolff just walking towards the Mercedes motorhome, mask on his face, but you can see the smile beaming underneath it. And it just looks incredible because we're on for an epic season. And for me, it's the rest of the paddock is looking absolutely beautiful, well lit up by these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful here palm trees. It's just been incredible out here. Like I said, the atmosphere is electric. Mechanics are excited to be back here. Race day atmosphere is in the air, and we cannot wait for Imola. We cannot wait for the rest of the F1 season. It's been incredible. Will, back over to you.
I tell you what, if you can bottle David Alorca, you would make a fortune for anyone that's ever feeling down or low. Just a little bottle of David.
I love his energy. I think he's as excited as I was when I first drove a Formula One car. I was like that inside the car. I love his energy, though.
This is the thing. It's been his lifelong dream to work in Formula One as well, and he'll be with us for the whole year. Great guy. Really delighted to have him on the team, and it shows with him as well. Right, let us move now back to F1 Towers, because we've been asking all of the drivers about that turn 4. And it's really interesting what they were saying, that yes, this morning, not in the driver's briefing, but this morning they were told you can go over turn 4. In qualifying, they were told you couldn't go over turn 4. You'd get your lap times underneath it. Today you could, but as Lando said, so long as you didn't gain an advantage. Sam Collins, I know you've been looking at turn 4. You've been looking not just at the incident that defined the race in terms of the win, but also the fact that earlier in the race, Lewis Hamilton had repeatedly been going over all 4 at turn 4. And Max Verstappen was told about it, mate. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The FIA going into the race weekend made it very clear that in free practice and in qualifying, you couldn't run outside on the exit curb of turn 4. However, they also made it very clear that you would be able to use that exit curb, that little bit on the side of the track, during the race. That was entirely clear all the way through. Now, quite often we see track limit stuff coming up and changing through there, but you can see this battle between Verstappen and Hamilton. This is the crucial moment of the race. Verstappen is closing up on Hamilton. He's going to have a great run around the outside. Now, look on the exit of the corner. This is what we're looking for. And look at the white line. Verstappen very clearly, and there's no argument here, goes across the white line just on the exit. I pressed pause too slowly there. But what happened there? He's allowed to use that space on the left-hand side, off the track. That was very clear. Though during the race, the FIA did seem to change that rule in a slightly odd way. And I think there's going to be some conversations between the drivers and the FIA about that, because what they said before the race wasn't what they were being told during the race, and that's not quite right. However, it was made very clear that the rule that you can, and it was Lando Norris was talking about it, you cannot make a pass and get an advantage. And that's exactly what Verstappen did. I'm not sure if he realised or the team radioed him to tell him, but he had to give the position back. Because if he didn't, it would be back like going back to the US Grand Prix a while ago. He'd have lost his position.
And here's the thing, mate. Here's what I'm interested in. Was the advantage gained by running off, or did he already have the position? Because he's... And this is a debate, and Pietro's looking at me right now as well, because Lewis's front wheels were alongside Max's rear wheels at the point at which Max put all 4 over that white line. Surely that's something, Sam, that they would be able to argue with the stewards post-race.
No, I don't think so, because by going out onto that exit curb and you running a wider arc, that allows you to get a higher exit speed and gives you an advantage. If he hadn't taken that, he'd have had to make a tighter exit, he'd have lost the rear end or could have lost the rear end, and that would allow Hamilton to come back at him. Here you can see, look on the exit here. There you can see he's got past, but look, he's used that extra speed to get past and get ahead of Hamilton. That right over the white line, Hamilton would have been able to hold him out had he not run wide. So it was a clear advantage, and that was game, set and match from my opinion. It didn't even go to the FIA. It was so quickly dealt with.
Fascinating stuff, Sam. Thanks very much. I'm going to bring in Pietro now, because Pietro's been raising his eyebrows at me for the last 30 seconds. You're a racer, Pietro.
I mean,
what do you make of it?
Listen, personally, I think that he had overtaken Hamilton before the exit. He was already braking ahead of him. If they would have gone side by side, the way Lewis did the exit as well, Lewis used the whole exit room. He went all the way out, which would have forced Max anyways onto the.
So you're saying there's an argument he didn't give him a car's width when he should have done because he was the car behind?
Well, because before they got to the exit curb, Max was already basically ahead of him. And then they ended up using the runoff area and got completely ahead of him. But anyways, Lewis, right behind him, used that exit curb. So he used the maximum width of the track anyways. If they would have gone side by side and Lewis would have used that maximum, exit curb.
Here it is. Now he's ahead there.
He's ahead already, and Lewis uses all the exit curb as well. So for me, it was clean, because if not, Lewis was also going to have to make his corner tighter to give room to Max.
And this is the moment that he gave it back. Good sportsmanship, ultimately, but I don't know, is the...
Too early for me. There wasn't many laps left in the race, so it's hard to tell. I think the team thought that his pace was so strong that anyways he would have been able to give him the position and then pass him, back the next lap, but then he didn't have the pace anymore.
And as Max said, slowing down. I would rather have won the race and run the risk of having a penalty and tried to stretch my leg to take that 5 seconds, or argued it after. Then today, Max fought for the win. He took the lead and he handed it. He handed the win back. That is, as a racer, how much does that hurt when he goes and looks back at this?
No,
how much is that going to hurt?
It hurts, because you could have won the first race of the season. You had the pace to do it. And for me also, it's, it was a gray area, the overtake. So for sure after the race, there's going to be some big discussions. But I think the team, it's hard to say outside, right? When you're inside and you're there with the team, you know a lot more. But from the outside, I think they thought he had so much pace that anyways, it was a safer bet just to let him by. There was about 2-3 laps to go. He's going to overtake him again. Now, if he had a bit of less pace than he was showing, maybe the team would have also agreed to, let's risk it. We go all the way to the finish.
The one good thing with all of that, though, is that, number one, the Grand Prix isn't determined in the steward's office. And number two, that we've got a fight. We have got a proper fight between Red Bull and Mercedes. And for race one, for looking at this, it's a really positive thing. Not quite so positive, though, for a 4-time world champion who finds himself in a new team, in new surroundings, and yet didn't make it out of qualifying quite where he wanted to. Didn't even get the start of the race he wanted to because the penalty put him right to the back of the field. A horrible Grand Prix. Contact with Esteban Ocon. Not a brilliant first weekend for Sebastian Vettel at Aston Martin.
Sebastian, just looked like a really, really difficult afternoon for you out there today.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, we had a good first lap, but then decided to do something different with strategy. I don't think it paid off in the end, but we had to try.
What happened in that moment with Esteban?
Well, I was sure he was leaving me space on the left, but then he crossed back, and as soon as I was behind him, I locked up and couldn't avoid to hit him straight on.
Not a happy bunny, Sebastian Vettel. It was not, let's say, not his finest hour today.
No, it wasn't. Just wasn't a great weekend as well for the team. I wasn't expecting this, lack of not lack of pace, but lack of competitiveness compared to where they were last year. I wasn't expecting that this rule change with the floor, making the floor, less effective, was going to affect, the low rate cars as much as it did. Didn't affect them. It affected Mercedes, the gap that they had, but they were still able to win. But it really affected, Aston Martin quite a bit compared to how they were last year. So, I think Lance finished in the top 10.
Yes.
I believe he did. He was able to score some points. And but yeah, Sebastian just, just didn't have a great weekend.
Now, back at F1 TV Towers, Sam Collins, I know you've been looking at some of the battles today, in particular those involving Mr. Sebastian Vettel, who struggled during the race today and had a couple of moves put on him, I think, before he'd actually pitted, while he'd been out for quite a while.
He tried this one-stop strategy, Will, and it just didn't really work out for Sebastian Vettel. And he had a little bit of a nightmare day out. And, the battles with the world champions, there seemed to be Aston Martins everywhere, didn't there? I mean, have a look at this. You've got an Aston Martin being bullied by a Alpine, and then you've got Carlos Sainz getting in there. And this battle went on for ages. This was great to watch as well. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching the race back and catching this, Will. And then watching these moves going through, the Ferrari going around the outside there. Unfortunately for Vettel, it didn't all end up particularly nicely, did it?
No, it didn't, and then he ended up rear-ending Esteban Ocon as well. That was an interesting one. What did you make of that? Because, of course, Seb ended up getting a penalty for it, but he said that Esteban had changed lines.
Well, let's have a look. Let's see what you think here. Esteban in the blue car on the left doesn't look very much like he's changing lines to me. It looks very much like the Aston Martin sets a target his gearbox and drives straight into him. I mean, that's pretty clear-cut. 10-second penalty seems a little bit fair, but look at that. No sign of the Alpine changing lines. Vettel just dive bombs straight at him. So this seems a bit of another nightmare for Sebastian Vettel. Looks he on board, no sign of changing lines there for the Alpine, and then he gets a bit of a shock when he turns in. It really reminds me quite a lot of an incident we've seen at this track before in the past. And you see a car getting flipped on its lid from that one. We saw it in the pre-race credits, actually. And I don't know, it just seems that Vettel, like last year, hasn't got his head quite in the right place.
It was reminiscent for me of Ricciardo and Hülkenberg when Daniel went to Renault. Do you remember that first year? And he hadn't quite got used to the Renault brakes yet. Of course, Seb's still trying to get to grips with his new car. And, yeah, it looks like he just got caught out there.
Yeah, I think that was just a little bit. I'm interested to hear what Pietro thinks because, I mean, from a racing driver's point of view, that clearly wasn't a change of line, was it? The Alpine was absolutely doing what it would normally do.
Yeah, what do you reckon?
No, for me, yeah. I mean, Esteban stayed in his line. I think, Sebastian got a bit caught off guard when he went to open up the corner. He lost downforce behind Esteban in a heavy braking zone. And that's what we see with these cars. That hopefully next year with the new regulations, the dirty air, running under traffic, you're not going to get affected as much when you're behind the car because you can clearly see the lack of downforce. He braked right behind Esteban, locked up the brakes, lost downforce, went straight into him. Esteban didn't move lines, so yeah, it was Sebastian's fault on that occasion. But I think it's a clear example to see, how difficult it is to drive these cars in dirty air, in traffic, and hopefully next year with the the new regulations as well, running in dirty air, it's gonna be a lot better, and the racing's gonna be a lot better because of that.
Yeah, I think Aston Martin would have been expecting a little bit more from Sebastian, but they get to go again in a couple of weeks' time. Sam, for now, thank you so much, my friend, for your insight and your input, as always. We haven't really spoken about your team. Yeah, a difficult day for them. Nikita spinning out right at the start. Someone get that light a new battery. Yeah, a little bit of a difficulty for Nikita early doors. He spun and went into the barrier right on that first lap. And then later in the race, Mick had a little bit of a moment as well, spinning into the gravel. Is it something with the car, do you know, or were they just two rookies getting a little bit excited a little bit early?
No, I mean, it's hard to tell. Every year the car is a little bit different. Obviously, we raced here at the end of last year. When I raced, it was a different circuit. But these cars are difficult to drive, especially with heavy winds. We had high winds today.
Of course, yes.
We have the high winds today. Sometimes you get a gust of wind and things can happen. Running under traffic, I think it was the first time they ran really, behind a lot of cars. In practice, you don't really get the opportunity, and it's different when you have 18 cars in front of you, causing all that turbulence. The car's going to handle a lot differently. But it's hard to comment when you're not, I wasn't there looking at, exactly the data, what happened at that time. I wasn't driving the car, obviously, so but it's difficult. It's a difficult race for the team, difficult weekend. But I'm sure we'll bounce back and try to have a better one at Imola.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from Nikita Mazepin now. His Formula One debut only lasted 2.5 corners.
Are you okay after that accident?
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
Can you just talk me through what happened in those first sequence of corners?
Well, very simple. I made a mistake. The tires were cold, and I got in the curb. Took too much throttle and spun. Totally my mistake. Very sorry for the team because they deserve to do much better than that. So yeah, very angry with myself, and yeah, very sorry for the team.
When you reflect on the weekend as a whole, though, are there positives that you can take out of it?
Obviously, there's always positives to take. My days on track are very long. They include loads of things, so the learning experience is obviously there. Yeah, and obviously you learn a lot through the days, but you have your ups and downs, and today is one of the biggest downs, but it's life.
Right, thank you very much.
Tough day for the team. Now they're bringing the final iteration of the car, all of the upgrades to the next Grand Prix in Imola, as I understand it. So hoping for a little step forward there.
Yeah, hoping for a little bit of a gain, make the car a bit better to drive, especially under dirty air. I think that's a bit of a struggle for us, but we know that the team's focused for next season. All the efforts, a lot of the efforts, I'd say 90% is focused on getting the car for 2022 with the new regulations, so that they're already developing the car for that. I'm pretty sure, and yeah, here's the.
Well, they've got some spare
race.
bits anyway left, some broken bits anyway at the end of this, and they're just gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one. I mean, running under dirty air, traction's there. He just started the race. They had to do an extra formation lap as well, so the tires were probably a little bit colder than maybe they were used to. And yeah, it just sometimes catches you off guard.
Right, shall we have a little talk? Camera number 1, camera number 2. All right. Shall we have a little talk to the top 3 drivers? We barely even referenced Valtteri Bottas today, who did play his role in the Grand Prix. But again, the luck just didn't run with him. A poor pit stop, dropping him out of real contention to be able to fight or try to play that role of holding Max Verstappen back. Tricky day for Valtteri Bottas.
Hey Valtteri, I thought you showed really good pace today, and if it wasn't for that pit stop, about the front left pit stop, you would have had a better result.
That was my feeling as well. I mean, I felt like the pace was good, which has been really the main focus over the winter and pre-season testing and this weekend overall. So at least it was nice to see that the pace was there. But yeah, things didn't quite go right. I mean, of course, on the first lap I lost 1 position to Ferrari with the soft tires, so that was a bit of a time loss, and obviously bigger time loss on the slow stop. And if you suddenly lose 10 seconds racing against Max and Lewis, you're not going to get that back driving-wise. So, unfortunate, but yeah, we got the fastest lap at the end, which is an extra point and more points than Red Bull.
Did you think at any point to maybe try a little bit of a different strategy to what Lewis was doing, just to give you another option?
I actually wanted to go long in the second stint to have more fresh tires in the last stint, but we're going to review it. My feeling was we were more passive than aggressive today, for me, which is the opposite that we should have been. But yeah, we'll have a look if there was something we could have done better.
I am looking forward to seeing the battle between Valtteri, Sergio, how that whole thing starts to play out between Mercedes and Red Bull, and the permutations and how they affect this championship fight. It's going to be great. I know they both want to fight for the championship as well, but
ideally that would be an ideal situation. You have Lewis fighting, Verstappen there, Perez and Bottas all fighting for the win. That'd be amazing. As a fan, like watching at home, that's what I'd love to see.
Absolutely. It wasn't to be Sergio's day. It wasn't to be Valtteri's day. It could have been Max's day. It was Lewis's day. Let's hear from both of those drivers now, the men who defined the 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton.
Max, So the team tell you early in the race that the Mercs are running wide at turn 4, and then they tell you that you have to give the place back when you run wide at turn 4. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, from my side, I don't know why that was in the beginning, why they were running wide initially, because in qualifying we were not allowed to do that. And of course I was outside of the track limit when I passed Lewis, so they told me to give the position back. So yeah, it's what it is. I mean, I gave the position back and then I tried again, but I didn't have the tyres anymore. Of course I had newer tyres, but as soon as you get within 1.5 seconds, they also degrade very quickly, and it's super hard to follow with these cars, especially with how the wind was today. It was really not helping out of turn 1 through turn 2, and like all in the old critical corners where you want to stay close, it was even like hurting even more. So it's what it is. But in a way, I mean, of course I'm disappointed about today, but last year we would be super happy with a race like this. So it also shows how much we have grown, and I think it's still a positive start to the season, and it's still a long season ahead. So I see it as only 7 points dropped, and we'll try to do better next time.
And are you quite excited by the prospect of a proper championship battle? Because that looks like what we've got on our hands.
Well, we'll try. We'll see how competitive we are in Imola, but we'll definitely try again.
Thank you. Lewis, what a race to start the season. You must be delighted.
Oh, I'm so happy. I really, really am. Absolutely over the moon just to see the response from the team. Knowing how difficult today really was, it was so tough. For the first race, I was not expecting that we'd be in that position, be able to keep up with them in the first stint and stuff, so I was really grateful for it.
So Max was hunting you down right at the death, passed you, then he let you back past. Just talk me through that whole time.
Oh, geez. I mean, I was struggling. Obviously, we stopped so early, quite shorter than our planned strategy. So even with the strategy lap that I would have stopped, that was already going to be difficult to keep him behind, but he went so much longer and had much fresher tyres. So I knew that I was, and then they said like he's going to catch you with 10 laps to go, and I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you know, we knew this weekend and through testing that we were going to be on the back foot, and there's been a lot of worry, I think, in the team, but we pulled it through.
Did you felt you had it when he was chasing you? I know that because I know you didn't come into this weekend knowing you had a car to beat them, but you must have
when
had
he was chasing me, no. I mean, I knew he was catching me massively. I couldn't do the laps that he was doing, and I guess in my mind I was thinking, okay, if I can just hold on to these tires, make no mistakes, maybe I just keep him at arm's length out of my DRS, which wasn't necessarily the case. Yeah, it was so hard.
Great race, thank you.
Thank you.
He knows the battle's on. He said that he would relish the battle. He says he's wanted this battle for a long time. We've wanted the battle for a long time. We've got it.
We have indeed, and even if you look at Verstappen's interview, he was disappointed didn't get the win, but he seems confident that it wasn't, we missed this win, might be the only one of the season, or he seems confident that it's not the only shot he's going to get at the win.
It's on, isn't it?
I think they're going to be really strong in the next race, and I think he knows that. I think the whole team knows that, and it must have been so satisfying for Lewis to win that race, because it was definitely tough from start to finish.
Yeah, it really was, and there were moments over those last 5-6 laps where Lewis looked, when he ran a little deep, ran a little wide on occasion. Max was putting him under pressure. We don't see Lewis under pressure very often. It's going to be fascinating to see him in that situation, in a position that he's not used to.
Yeah, usually he's fighting with a bit of a margin, so he's always probably driving a little bit, with the margin to get the win. This time he had to go qualifying lap after qualifying lap in the race, and he nailed it, got the win.
What a great way to start the season. Let's take a look at the championship standings after this first race of the 2021 season. It will be, of course, Lewis Hamilton, who leads the Formula One Drivers' World Championship after this first race on 25 points. Then Max Verstappen on 18. Valtteri Bottas taking third and the extra point for fastest lap ahead of Lando Norris, Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda. What a sensation. And Lance Stroll in 10th for Aston Martin. Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Ocon, Russell, Vettel, Schumacher, Gasly, Latifi, Alonso and Mazepin yet to score a point. Don't be too harsh on them, it's only been one race. Then Constructors, Mercedes leaping away. 41 points, placed 28 for Red Bull. McLaren on 18, Ferrari on 12, then AlphaTauri on 2, and Aston Martin on 1. Well, Pietro, what do we take out of this incredible weekend?
Well, it's going to be a fight, you know, for that titles championship between Mercedes and Red Bull. In my opinion, it's going to go down to the wire between Lewis and Max, and hopefully Bottas and Perez. We'll see how they'll evolve throughout the next races, and again, a very tight midfield pack.
It's going to be absolutely sensational. The excitement coming into this event was palpable. The expectation was so high because what we thought we'd seen at testing was a change in the guard. For the first time in a long time, Red Bull starting the season on the front foot rather than the back foot. But was it all just sandbagging from Mercedes? Don't you believe it? We have got a World Championship fight, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Red Bull and Mercedes, one race down. It was a thriller. Bring on the rest of 2021. From Pietro, from me, from Sam, from David, and from all of our team here on the post-race F1 show. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. We can't wait to see you at the next race.